For more on where Disney goes from here, we are joined by LightShed Partners co-founder and analyst Rich Greenfield. Rich, great to have you with us. You're smiling. You heard what Laura said. I mean, I think the point here
literally
is
the absurdity that comes out of her mouth, it just makes me laugh. I'm sorry. But,
okay.
Look,
I think
should Disney spin off?
The point is that you want to escape the purview of the FCC here.
Sure. Look, and we've been arguing literally since Bob Chapek, even before Iger, that Disney should spin off ESPN and ABC. And I actually think looking at the recent ESPN NFL deal, which may actually have played a role in how Disney positioned this, because they do need regulatory approval for that. But we really believe that NFL deal is the precursor to, in a post-Bob Iger era, which is only really 18 months away, that Disney is going to pursue the exit of ABC and ESPN and sort of focus on those core businesses that really drive the Disney flywheel. But look, Disney's in a tough spot, Melissa. Like, there is no easy answer here. Remember, more than half the country voted for President Trump. I'm sure a lot of them are applauding what the broadcasters are doing. And remember, Disney has to fill its theme parks. They have to fill its cruise ships. Remaining, quote unquote, apolitical is really important if you're the Walt Disney Company. And they're sort of in a very difficult position as a company. And so this is not easy. I just think that, the irony here is more programming, more high quality programming or notable programming moving off of broadcast television actually isn't good for the broadcasters that are boycotting today.
So apolitical means returning Jimmy Kimmel Live to the air. I mean, you can argue that being apolitical is taking him off the air because he made political comments or comments that could be viewed as political. I mean, it's a very, very tough spot to be in. And I think the question here is, at what point, for an advertiser who's placing an ad on Jimmy Kimmel Live, does this property become less, is there less return on that investment in terms of the ad space? If 70, some markets are major markets, some markets are mid-sized markets, are not seeing those ads.
Look, this is probably the first time in a decade I'm sure a lot of people are going to watch Jimmy Kimmel tonight. And so there is a fundamental problem with late night television ratings that isn't, this is not just a Jimmy Kimmel issue, a Stephen Colbert issue, or even a Jimmy Fallon issue. In fact, Melissa, the big question is on your, parent company, how does Saturday Night Live work in a world where you can't make political statements? Like, what is SNL? I mean, if you think about how they've lampooned, people in power for many years, it's hard to imagine what these shows look like. And it begs the question, should Disney move Kimmel to cable networks and streaming, like be on Hulu exclusively, or should SNL only be on Bravo or only be on Peacock? Like, maybe it just means more and more programming should leave broadcast television if you're going to take controversial views. Because, again, once you're on cable, whether it's Fox News or MSNBC, there's nothing the government can do. They don't regulate those businesses the way they regulate. There's no public interest test or mandate the way there is for broadcast television. And so I fear that the irony of all of this is that you see a greater departure of programming that leaves broadcast television, which is already suffering from a lot of entertainment programming has shifted to cable and now to streaming. I think you're going to see more talk, whether it's daytime talk or nighttime talk. I think you're going to see more of that shift over to other platforms because broadcast television is just not a safe place for that programming. It's too dangerous for these larger companies.
Rich, it seems interesting. You just mentioned SNL, and I kind of feel like that Lorne Michaels could be the hero we need right now. That guy's not going down with his ship. I could see him really standing up one way or another. But, you just mentioned this. Like, if Jimmy Kimmel, let's say, you put him on ESPN Plus or Disney Plus or Hulu Plus, whatever the heck it is, one of the pluses, right? Like, is that enough to appease the FCC? I can't imagine it would be. They probably see it as a bit of a technicality.
There's nothing they can do about it. I mean, they don't regulate the FCC has no authority over Peacock. They can't control that content. Obviously the president, he sued New York Times. He can certainly, if he doesn't like or he thinks he's being libeled, anyone can sue anyone in this country. It's America. But the rules and the risks that you run that, are certainly that govern the very unique rules around broadcasting are unique. And so I actually do think you are going to see, Dan, more programming shift away because it's just too difficult. And look, we all know streaming, all of these streaming platforms need more exclusive content. Maybe some of this is part of that answer over time. Now, the risk is, and Melissa pointed this out, and I think it's a really important point, you lose reach. Like the reason you want to be on broadcast, the reason NBC is getting the NBA back on Sunday night is these platforms want reach. And so putting content on smaller reach platforms like Peacock or even Bravo, like that is the fundamental challenge, is that you're losing reach. The beauty of broadcast is you reach, virtually with antennas every home in America in theory. And so there is that danger for advertising that makes all of these shows that much more difficult long term if you don't have that broadcast reach and that impact.
So if there is a shift of late night TV, talk show TV, whatever that you want to call it, that might have political views onto a streaming platform, and there's less quality content or less of that unique programming for affiliates and for the other channels, how do you impute that value then? I mean, what is Nexstar worth? What is, how do you impute the value of Comcast or Versant?
Well, think about for Nexstar and Sinclair. I mean, just think what's happened on Thursday night, right? Thursday night television, or Thursday night football used to be on broadcast TV. It was on Fox most recently, and then it shifted over to Amazon. More and more content is shifting off of broadcast television. You probably can't name a show on, pick an ABC show on Monday or on Tuesday night. Like, I'm sure you can't name one anymore the way you used to years ago. And so all of that entertainment, high quality programming has shifted to streaming. I think this is just the next step of more and more content, probably accelerates that shift in content. And I will take a little different view from Dan on will Lauren Michaels try to go hard at this, because I think the challenge for NBC is they might want to go out and try to buy WBD, or who knows what the longer term ambitions are of Comcast and NBC Universal. And I just don't think you want to put yourselves even more in the governmental crosshairs than some of these big media companies already are. And I think that's part of what you're seeing over the last week.